This is Outnumbered, and I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. And here today, Harris Faulkner, Sandra Smith, Kirsten Powers, and today's #OneLuckyGuy, Pete Hegseth. And he is outnumbered. Great to be here with everybody today. And I have to tell you something. I like your patriotism. Not just because you served, but what you're dropping right here
right
today.
There? You liking that? That's, I mean, Independence Day weekend socks. You got to do it.
Very sweet. I want to get some of those. Some like knee highs.
They took a shot.
I'm disappointed you don't have those.
I think I'm going to get some. I think
Christmas
they're very cute. I love it. Well, it's great to have you here today, and everybody. Look at the beautiful colors, huh, Harris? We love them. All right. Inside joke. All right. Could we soon see the IRS chief on the hot seat again? This, as we see new fireworks in the IRS targeting scandal over Lois Lerner's missing emails. 2 years of records reportedly gone for good after her computer crashed. Well, House Oversight Chairman Darrell Issa offering IRS Commissioner John Koskinen a chance to try again and explain his testimony after Issa says Lerner's attorney made conflicting statements. Here's Mr. Koskinen testifying 10 days ago on what he knew about whether Lerner kept hard copies of her official records as required by law.
The responsibility is if you have an email that's a record, you print it out in hard copy. My understanding is every employee is supposed to print records of that are official records on hard copy and keep them. She had hard copy records.
Well, but Lerner's attorney dropped this bombshell when he spoke to Politico last week, saying his client did not know she was supposed to print out official records. And a few days later, in a TV interview, Lerner's attorney appeared to muck up the waters even more when he said this.
She printed out some things, not others. You can't print out hundreds of thousands of emails. We'll be back to the days.
She print out everything that had to do with IRS business, with policy, with questions. Did she print all those out?
You know, what's a federal record is a subjective question. I'm sure not everything, but she printed out a lot of things.
All right, so I'm going to take this around. Couch. Sandra, you're up first.
So I guess we're supposed to point out the fact that Koskinen never actually said that Lerner herself followed the Federal Records Act. But by saying that he assumed that all employees did, he was insinuating or making a very large assumption that she did. And yes, the rule is, or the law is, that any email pertaining to decision-making at the IRS had to be printed and kept in a file. At this point, her lawyer is saying that she didn't know that she had to do that. Well, Lois Lerner needs to answer some questions, and there's no question why the American people are outraged over the fact that we still have absolutely no answers on this, Kimberly.
Yeah.
And this continues in this way.
It's shameful. I think it's embarrassing as a country that the IRS impacts every law-abiding citizen that's filing tax returns and putting our faith and trust in them, and this is what we get? I mean, what are you supposed to do with this?
You know what's really interesting, too? The I didn't know defense that we keep seeing coming from this administration. I didn't know. She didn't know she was supposed to give notice to the archivist, who we've already heard from, the National Archivist, who said, well, they didn't let me know that the computer had crashed and let me know that there were no hard copies made of her emails. She didn't know she was supposed to do that. She also apparently didn't know that she couldn't target certain lawmakers like Grassley of Iowa. You know, you can't just audit somebody because you want to. Another coworker had to tell her, no, you have to wait until he files. If there's a problem with the tax file, then you can act on it. Hold on a second. The didn't know. She's an appointee by this president, right? My question now is, does the president know why he hired her? Kirsten?
Well, I don't think that the president interview Lois Lerner and hire her. I don't think that's quite what happened.
She's an appointee. So how does it happen?
What I was going to say is I don't think that I don't believe that she didn't know. Like I just don't buy it. You go
so she's not incompetent. She's lying.
You go through training. You go through training. I mean, when I worked in the Clinton administration, I left there in 1998. This was way before we know as much about. We have as much ability as we do with the internet today. We had very extensive training on how to archive and keep track of records, everybody down to the most junior employees. So it's just not believable. I don't believe that she didn't know that she needed to keep these records.
That is the more important test in this, is can you actually remotely buy what they're saying? And that's why people appreciate what Paul Ryan said in that testimony when he said, I just don't believe you. Because what they're saying across the board, from 6 computers crashing simultaneously to I didn't know the rules, even though I'm the commissioner, and what they hide behind is semantics. So what is a record versus a an impersonal email where you're talking about things. What did I have to print out? What didn't I? I didn't really know. And they can hide behind the confusion of a bureaucracy and never be blamed. And that's, I think there's more here, or else Issa wouldn't come out this hard.
I think you're right. I think he's got something. He's onto it. He's sniffing out the trail here, so he's onto it. But let me tell you something. What bothers me most is the fact that, like what you're saying, you play for the other team, and you're like, yeah, I don't believe that. Whoa, flag, right? I would rather someone tell me I'm a dodo bird, you know, and I don't know anything, than someone who just outright lying.
Well, you know,
exactly.
I know
mean,
that
the choices aren't good.
I know that I'm supposed to keep my IRS, my tax returns for a certain amount of time. I can't tell you if it's 3 years or 6 years. Depends on your situation. But I know that if I say that I don't know, that doesn't fly. And apparently she thinks it's going to fly with her. How long is it, by the way?
7 years,
it's 7, actually.
Oh, there you go.
You better keep that straight, because if they
No one's half the battle.
you're going to be in trouble. Although we'll help you
I'm
out.
prepared, Harris.
Pump up the volume there.
President Obama is speaking out more and more when it comes to blaming House Republicans for gridlock in Washington. Here we go.
Now Republicans are mad at me for taking these actions. They're not doing anything, and then they're mad that I'm doing something. So we don't have to wait for Congress to do some good stuff. They don't do anything except block me. Today, I'm beginning a new effort to fix as much of our immigration system as I can on my own, without Congress. If Congress can't act on core issues that would actually make a difference in helping middle-class families get ahead, then we're going to have to be creative about how we can make real progress.
Things boiling over this week after House Speaker John Boehner's threat to sue the president for abusing his executive authority. The president then said this.
Middle-class families can't wait for Republicans in Congress to do stuff. So sue me. As long as they're doing nothing, I'm not going to apologize for trying to do something.
You know, I think maybe the president missed his calling as a stand-up comedian.
Not that funny, Harris.
Is this a case of swagger, and he has a whole lot of that, and he's, you know, just calling out the other guys for not doing anything? Or is this something else?
Well, he's an arrogant dude, and we've known that for a while. I mean, but who's he talking about when he talks about do nothing? I could swear he's talking about Harry Reid's do nothing Senate, which of course hasn't passed a budget for 5 or 6 years and has really done nothing but sit on their hands. This is what the president has perfected. If I want to work with Kirsten across the aisle, I reach my hand out and then punch you in the nose repeatedly and then tell you, why won't you reach out and continue to reach out? You wonder why the president's poll numbers are at an all-time worst since World War II and Reagan's are at the highest, because he knew how to, he had principles, and when he reached out, he meant it to try to strike a deal. There's no real earnest sense, I think, from conservatives that he wants to strike a deal other than to use it to bludgeon them or then sign executive orders to get around it.
And in case anybody's just tuning in, he would never hit Kirsten.
No.
Never.
Never.
You know what? Former Speaker Newt Gingrich recently was quoted as saying this. There are 3 constitutional mechanisms for Congress to control a president who's behaving illegally. You can impeach him, you can sue him, you can cut off the money. And of all 3 of these, suing him is actually the least disruptive to the economy and to the country. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not buying a whole lot of what he's saying in general, okay? But the thing that bothers me about the president is the fact that this is a guy who's now crying because the Republicans won't play with him. Remember how arrogant he was when he said, I won the election, elections have consequences? That's what we're dealing with. Yeah. He was a non-starter from day one. He really didn't want to work with the other side. I mean, again,
Boehner and Gingrich are now asking.
You know, I guess, sure, because this is how it's turned out to be. It's so disappointing. It's an abject failure of government, and there's a lack of leadership, and it is reflected in the polls.
So it's no surprise that people continue to say, as we've seen in the recent Fox News polls, 60% of Democrats and Republicans polled don't trust their government. You know, they don't like what they're seeing. They don't like what they're happening. They don't like the bickering in Washington.
They don't like Congress either, yeah.
Alexandra, do you, excuse me one second, Pete, do you think, though, the lawsuit gets it done? Do you think it gives Republicans
I've said on the show that I just think that's a distraction from the message that Republicans should be honing in on. You know, that's the economy. That's the lack of what's gotten done. That's the NSA. That's the IRS scandals. That's Benghazi, still unanswered questions. You know, I think that Boehner's kind of getting away from what their message should really be, and it's a bit of a distraction, and it's really kind of out there.
What should the message be?
I think you've got to do something. I think Boehner thinks that going for impeachment looks extreme at this point, so they're going towards something where they can litigate very serious legal overreaches by this administration with executive orders that are bordering on lawlessness. So you've got to do something about it. And so I appreciate them willing to do it. They just can't overreach.
Kirsten, what do you, as a Democrat, think of when you hear the president say, "Well, sue me"?
Look, I think that first of all, I have to say the Republicans were not interested in working with Obama. So this is sort of a fantasy alternate universe where they were interested in working with him. That doesn't mean he shouldn't try harder to work with them. But I do think he did try somewhat. But they had a very clear strategy from the beginning that they were not going to work with him and they're going to make things difficult for him. That said, I, in my column yesterday, said that I am a reluctant supporter, an unlikely supporter of this lawsuit, because the president's solution to that isn't to violate the law and to do executive orders that are illegal, and he's already been slapped down by the Supreme Court multiple times. And so I do think that if this is what it's going to take to get him to stop thinking that he can go around Congress in situations that he can't, then I think it's good to have the lawsuit.
By the way, I brain room this here at Fox. Executive orders issued by President Obama so far, 182. That's not more than anybody else. It's about average, but as you've pointed out, it isn't how many, it's what they have been dealing with.
Yeah, well, that number is kind of meaningless also because a lot of executive orders don't even, they're very minor things. They're renaming offices and things like that, so they don't really mean anything.
It'll be interesting to see how we go forth and see how this lawsuit takes shape. Meanwhile, we've heard about girls in high school worrying about their weight, but kids as young as 8 years old, the new body image concerns that go all the way into elementary school. And speaking of weight, a new survey is ranking fast food restaurants. Why some of the most popular chains may find the results, hard to swallow. I'm hungry, by the way. Kimberly, burger?
Burger King. Excellent.